You see, my friends, life is not a serious business. It only seems that way because we've forgotten what game we're playing. There is, underneath all the solemnity and struggle, a kind of divine mischief at work, a cosmic game of hide and seek. The universe, in all its splendor, is hiding from itself, pretending not to know who it really is. And the disguise it wears is you. Yes, this curious bundle of memories and mannerisms you call yourself, that's the mask the universe is wearing today. The word person, after all, comes from the Latin persona, meaning a mask worn by an actor. You are, quite literally, the mask through which the infinite plays its part. But here's the joke. You've become so fascinated by the mask that you've forgotten you're the actor. And so the play begins, the great drama of being somebody. We enter this world and are handed our roles. The dutiful son, the devoted mother, the diligent worker, the patriot, the sinner, the saint. And we play them with such conviction that we mistake the part for the player. We forget that behind the costume and the name tag, there is something watching, smiling quietly, waiting for the curtain to lift. Now, what is the purpose of such a game? Why would the infinite, which has everything, bother to pretend to be something as limited as you or me? Well, you see, for the same reason that you watch a film, or read a novel, or play chess for the delight of the story, the thrill of uncertainty, the dance of contrast, if you knew the ending, if you controlled every move, there would be no fun in it. Imagine a dream in which you could have anything you wanted. The first night, you'd fulfill every desire, pleasure beyond measure, power without limit. But after a few nights, you'd grow tired of perfection. You'd long for surprise, for risk, for the taste of challenge, and eventually, you'd dream the dream of not knowing you're dreaming. You'd dream this, a world of separate people, of striving and sorrow, of laughter and loss. You'd dream being you. That is precisely what has happened. You, dear listener, are God playing the game of pretending not to be God, the one reality, wearing billions of faces, exploring every possibility, from saint to sinner, from beggar to king. And the purpose of the game is not to escape it, not to renounce it, but to remember, even for a moment, that you were never really trapped. The Hindus call this play Leela, the cosmic dance. The Taoists speak of it as the flow of the way. And in the West, we might simply call it the divine comedy. But whatever the name, the essence is this. The world is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be enjoyed. And the funny thing is, the moment you see this, truly see it, you can't help but laugh. Because the whole business of being anxious, of trying to control, to win, to make something of yourself, all of it begins to look wonderfully absurd. It's like watching a cat chase its own tail. The harder it tries, the more the tail slips away, not realizing it already has what it seeks. The secret, then, is not to stop playing the game, but to wake up within it, to see that the rules, the goals, the roles, they are all part of the grand design. And when you know that, you can play with grace. You can laugh when you lose, you can celebrate when you win, and you can love every twist in the story because you see that the storyteller and the story are one and the same. So when you wake up, and sooner or later, you will, don't rush to leave the stage, don't throw away your costume in horror and say, it was all just a dream. No, bow to the mystery. Smile to the audience of stars. And then, my friend, take a deep breath, straighten your mask, and play your part with all the joy and sincerity of one who knows it's a game worth playing. When one begins to wake up, the world doesn't change, but you do. Suddenly, you notice that the pieces on the board are moving, just as before. People still chase money, defend opinions, fall in love, grow old, and die. But something in you steps back and sees the pattern. You realize you've been playing this game all along. Only you didn't know it was a game. It's rather like when you were a child, playing hide and seek, and for a moment you forgot that you were playing. You got so frightened hiding in the cupboard that you thought the others had gone home. Then, when someone suddenly opened the door and shouted, "Found you!" you burst into laughter and relief. That laughter was awakening. To awaken, then, is to see the board, to notice the grid beneath the drama, the silent field on which all the pieces move. You begin to sense that life isn't happening to you, it's happening through you. The river has never belonged to the wave. The wave is the river, expressing itself in motion. Most people, bless them, live as if they are the wave, trying desperately to control its shape. I must be higher. I must not crash. I must keep going. And of course, all this striving only creates froth and spray. But when the wave remembers it is water, the entire struggle dissolves. It doesn't stop moving, oh no, but it moves effortlessly, in harmony with the tide. Seeing the board means you no longer take the moves so personally. You may still win or lose, marry or part, succeed or fail, but underneath it all there's a strange serenity, a knowing smile that whispers, "Ah, this too is part of the dance." Now, people sometimes imagine that awakening must feel like a great explosion of bliss, a permanent ecstasy, a halo of light floating above one's head. Not necessarily. More often, it's a quiet click inside a kind of inner chuckle when you realize that what you were taking so seriously is just the universe playing with itself. It can happen while washing dishes, hearing a bird, or watching sunlight on the floor. Once you've seen the board, you can never quite unsee it. You may still get lost in the game for a while, swept up in fear or ambition, but somewhere behind the noise, there remains a quiet witness, the part of you that knows the pieces are made of the same wood as the board itself. And here is the beauty. Awakening doesn't make you superior or detached. It simply makes you honest. You see your own foolishness with tenderness. You recognize the world's madness as your own reflection. And instead of judging, you begin to laugh. Because you realize that behind all the seriousness, the wars, the striving, the tears, it's all a grand improvisation. A jazz performance of cosmic proportions. The sage and the fool, the sinner and the saint, the beggar and the king, they are all players on the same stage, reading from the same script, written in invisible ink. And the moment you see that, something in you relaxes, the shoulders drop, the breath deepens, the world becomes vivid again, not as something to conquer or escape, but to see. So, awakening is not the end of the game. It's simply the moment when the player looks down and realizes, "Ah, I've been moving these pieces all along." The fear begins to fade, because the unknown is no longer your enemy. It's your own hand in disguise. And from that moment, the game takes on a new flavor, less like a battle, more like a dance, less like a test, more like a song. Now, here's the most amusing part of all this. The moment you wake up and see the game, there arises in many of us a very noble thought. Ah, I must leave the game. I must transcend it. You see, the ego has just put on a new mask this time. It calls itself the spiritual seeker. You start reading sacred books, sitting cross-legged, fasting, meditating for hours, wearing the right beads, chanting the right words. You may even look very holy in the mirror. But if you listen carefully, behind all that incense and stillness, you'll hear the same old voice whispering, "I will be free. I will become enlightened. I will escape the wheel." And so the game continues. disguised as its own escape. It's like trying to run away from your own shadow. You can't, because you're the one casting it. The ego, you see, is endlessly clever. It will turn even the desire for freedom into another form of bondage. It will turn I want to be holy into I am holier than thou. It will make meditation into a competition, detachment into an identity, and silence into a performance. I once met a man who told me, with great seriousness, I have renounced the world. He said this while clutching a cup of imported tea and checking his watch to make sure he wasn't late for his non-attachment meeting. The very effort to renounce the world was what kept him bound to it. You see, if you say, I refuse to play, you've already chosen a side. You've made not playing into your new game. The abstainer is still playing. The recluse still defines himself by what he's avoiding. And the paradox deepens. The harder you try to escape, the tighter the web becomes. Because the moment you imagine there's somewhere else to get to, you've missed it. There's no outside to this game. The board has no edges. You can't step off the universe any more than a wave can leave the sea. The Buddha sat under a tree not to escape the world, but to see it clearly. The silence he found was not the silence of withdrawal, it was the silence of understanding. He realized there was nothing to run from, because what he called world and what he called self were two sides of the same coin. But we are stubborn creatures. We love the idea of achievement. We turn enlightenment into a prize, like a cosmic gold medal. We imagine saints sitting in heaven saying, ah, you made it. Welcome to the club. But awakening isn't about reaching a summit. It's about realizing there was never a mountain at all. When you drop the notion of escape, you begin to feel the texture of things again, the smell of rain, the warmth of sunlight, the laughter of children, even the tears of grief. You see that everything you once ran from was part of you all along. So the true liberation, the only real freedom, is the freedom from the idea of liberation. To see that there is nowhere to go and nothing to get, because you already are what you were seeking. And once this dawns on you, oh, what a relief. You can stop pretending to be the wise monk or the holy fool. You can stop twisting yourself into spiritual knots. You can simply live, eat when you're hungry, rest when you're tired, love when the heart moves, and laugh when the absurdity of it all becomes too delightful to resist. Then the play goes on. But the player is no longer trapped. The wave dances freely, knowing it cannot fall out of the ocean. The actor speaks his lines, knowing it's only a role, yet savoring every word. So don't try to escape the game, my friends. Play it fully, but play it consciously, because when you stop trying to win or leave, you discover something far more marvelous, that the very game you thought imprisoned you has been the dance of freedom all along. You see, once you realize that you can't escape the game, the question naturally arises, how, then, shall I play? Most people play unconsciously. They are so identified with the part they've been given that they forget the theater altogether. They speak their lines as if the script were sacred and their mask were their face. And in doing so, they suffer. But the one who awakens doesn't leave the stage. He simply plays with awareness. He knows it's a performance, and therefore he can act his part beautifully. Think of an actor who knows the play is fiction. He can cry real tears, tremble with real fear, laugh with genuine joy. Yet behind every emotion there's a quiet understanding. This is the scene we are in. He doesn't cling to it when the curtain falls. In the same way, the awakened person lives fully, but lightly. He pays his bills, raises his children, faces illness, and still smiles, not because he is indifferent, but because he knows the current moment is a passing line in a far greater script. When you know it's a play, you stop fighting the story. You stop trying to rewrite the universe. Instead, you dance with it. You learn the secret rhythm that runs through things, the Tao, as the Chinese call it, and your life begins to flow with that rhythm instead of against it. Now, many imagine that this awareness makes one cold or detached. Not at all. In fact, it makes you warmer more alive, because you are no longer afraid to feel. You can let joy come and go like a song, let sorrow pass like the wind. You are no longer gripping life with white knuckles. You are allowing it to move through you. This is what I mean by playing consciously. It doesn't mean pretending not to care. It means caring without clinging. It means loving without demanding permanence, creating without insisting on success, and serving without expecting reward. You see, when you act unconsciously, you act out of fear. When you act consciously, you act out of play. And the energy of play is infinitely more creative than the energy of fear. A child building a sandcastle by the sea knows the waves will wash it away, but she builds it anyway. And when the tide comes, she laughs because she understood the rules from the start. That is wisdom, not to control the tide, but to dance with it. So too, when you awaken, you become like that child again. You don't stop working or loving or striving. You simply do it with a lighter hand. You stop trying to own life and begin to experience it. You stop trying to arrive and simply enjoy traveling. And strangely enough, when you play consciously, your actions become far more skillful. You no longer act out of desperation or ambition. You act out of clarity. You don't rush to fix the world because you see that the world is not broken. You don't try to save souls. You remind them they were never lost. This is the great paradox. When you give up trying to make everything perfect, you start to make things truly beautiful. When you stop grasping at success, you do your best work. When you stop trying to love, love begins to flow naturally. You see, awareness transforms everything it touches. When you're aware, even the most ordinary act, pouring tea, folding laundry, breathing, becomes sacred, because you are no longer doing it as a means to an end. You are doing it for its own sake, like music, like dancing, like laughter. That, my friends, is the art of playing consciously. To live as an artist of experience, to perform your role in the cosmic theater with grace, humor, and sincerity, knowing full well that when the curtain falls, the actor remains untouched. You can bow, you can smile, you can exit the stage quietly, and the whole audience of stars will applaud, because you played your part with awareness. Now, let's talk about morality. Yes, that serious word that's been haunting humanity for centuries. From the moment we can speak, we are told what we should and should not do. Be kind. Tell the truth. Don't steal. Respect your elders. Obey the law. And of course, these things sound very fine indeed. But what most people never see is that morality, as we commonly understand it, is only a set of agreements, rules invented so that the game doesn't descend into chaos. You might say morality is like the rules of cricket or chess. They're useful, even beautiful, when understood as part of play. But woe to the player who forgets he's playing and begins to think the rule book is divine decree. You see, the trouble begins when we mistake conventions for cosmic law. When we imagine there's a great referee in the sky keeping score, applauding the good players, punishing the bad ones, and sending the truly naughty off the field for eternity. What a strange idea that is. And yet most people live under it as if it were gravity itself. But the awakened man, the one who sees the board, realizes something quite liberating. Morality is not truth, it's choreography. It's the rhythm by which we move together. And when you understand this, you no longer obey out of fear or pride, but out of harmony. You stop saying, I must be good. You start to see, when I act in tune with life, goodness happens naturally. The universe itself becomes your teacher, not as commandments, but as music. Consider, for instance, the way we follow traffic laws. When you drive on the left side of the road, or the right, depending where you are, it's not because the universe demands it. It's simply that if we didn't agree, we'd collide every few minutes. So we make an agreement, a rhythm, to keep the dance flowing. In the same way, ethical behavior is a kind of dance step. When you see that we are not separate, that your neighbor, your enemy, the tree, the ocean, are all part of the same field of being, compassion arises spontaneously. You don't try to be kind. You can't help it, because harming another would be like cutting off your own finger. So, the truly moral man does not need commandments. He does not consult a list to decide whether to lie or steal. His actions flow from awareness, not obligation. For when you see clearly, when the illusion of separateness falls away, ethics is as natural as breathing. You don't have to tell the river to flow downhill, it simply does. You don't have to tell a flower to face the sun, it simply turns. Likewise, the enlightened heart doesn't have to be told to love. It loves because that is its nature. Now, don't mistake this for license or anarchy. I'm not saying do whatever you please. That's merely the ego wearing freedom as a costume. What I am saying is that when you awaken, you become the law, not in the sense of control, but in the sense of alignment. You no longer follow commandments from outside. You resonate with the melody inside. And when you live this way, your morality becomes graceful, not rigid. It bends like bamboo in the wind, never breaking. It's spontaneous, alive, musical. The great Taoists used to say, the highest virtue is not virtuous. What they meant was that when virtue is genuine, it's unconscious, like the way your heart beats or your lungs breathe. The moment you're proud of being good, you've already fallen into hypocrisy. So forget about being a good person, be a real person. And when you're real, when you see the unity behind all things, goodness flows naturally. Not because you've memorized the rules, but because you are in rhythm with the music of the world. Then morality becomes not a burden, but a dance. You're no longer obeying the beat, you are the beat. And every act, whether washing dishes, speaking truth, or helping a stranger, becomes a note in that cosmic symphony. Now, when we talk about transcending morality, some clever people always get the wrong idea. They say, if everything is one, if there is no real right or wrong, then I can do whatever I please. And I tell them, of course you can. But have you noticed that the universe still has consequences? You see, even after you awaken, you don't start floating 3 inches above the pavement. Gravity still works. Taxes still come due. The kettle still whistles when the water's hot. Enlightenment doesn't mean you get to bend the laws of nature. It means you finally understand them. So, the wise person, though utterly free inside, still stops at red lights. He still pays his bills. He still says please and thank you. Not because he's afraid of punishment or eager for reward, but because it's the easiest, most harmonious way to live. Imagine 2 musicians in an orchestra. One plays exactly as written, stiff and anxious to please the conductor. The other knows the score so deeply that he can improvise without disturbing the melody. The second musician is the awakened man. He plays the same notes but with freedom. You see, rebellion is not freedom. It's still a reaction, and whatever you react against, you remain tied to. When you fight the world, you are chained to it. When you flow with it, you move as part of its current. Now, flowing with the world doesn't mean blind obedience. It means understanding why things are the way they are and moving in rhythm with that understanding. You follow the speed limit, not because it's a rule, but because harmony is smoother than collision. You don't shout at the rain for falling, you carry an umbrella. This is what the Taoists meant when they spoke of wu-wei, action without force. It's not inaction. It's intelligent cooperation with the pattern of things. When you act from that still center, Life ceases to feel like resistance. Everything you do is effortless, even the difficult parts. I remember once someone asked me, "Alan, if you've seen through the illusion of the self, why bother to do anything? Why not just sit and do nothing?" And I said, "Well, that's precisely what I'm doing. I'm playing the part of Alan Watts doing something." Because you see, the play goes on, whether you take it seriously or not. The enlightened person knows it's a play, and so they play well. If you try to opt out entirely, you'll find that the universe simply writes you back into the script. Even the hermit who runs off to live in a cave still has to deal with hunger, with weather, with his own heartbeat. The moment you exist, you are in relationship with air, with gravity, with others. You can't escape it. So, the only intelligent thing to do is to participate gracefully. This is why the awakened man still obeys the speed limit. He knows that the line between chaos and order is very fine, and balance is maintained not by rebellion, but by awareness. He knows that when you cooperate with life's flow, it carries you effortlessly to where you need to go. And here's the secret. Once you no longer resist, even the so-called rules start to feel like play. You bow to them lightly, like a dancer acknowledging her partner. You can follow society's conventions without becoming its prisoner, because you know they're part of the choreography of the world. So, yes, the sage pays his taxes, holds doors open, stops at red lights, not because he's enslaved, but because he enjoys harmony more than argument. He doesn't confuse rebellion with freedom, because real freedom isn't the absence of rules, it's the absence of fear. Freedom isn't about breaking the pattern. It's about seeing through it and realizing that you were never outside the dance to begin with. When you begin to see all this, when you realize that you can't leave the game and that the only way to play is consciously something marvelous happens, you rediscover joy. Not the noisy, glittering joy that depends on winning, but a quiet, glowing joy that has no reason at all. You start to laugh, not because life is easy, but because you finally see what's been going on. You see that every triumph, every tragedy, every heartbreak and revelation has been part of the same great cosmic joke. And the joke is not cruel, it's divine play. It's the laughter of a child who hides behind a curtain and says, "You can't see me." It's the laughter of the universe pretending to be you, forgetting itself, and then suddenly remembering. "Oh yes," it says, "I was only playing all along." This is what the ancient Hindus called Leela, the play of the cosmos. Not a game with winners and losers, but a dance with no beginning and no end. And when you really feel this, not as an idea, but as a living pulse in your being, everything becomes lighter. You find yourself laughing at moments where once you would have cried. When plans fall apart, you no longer curse the heavens, you smile, because you sense that something far wiser than your plans is unfolding. When success arrives, you enjoy it fully, but without clinging, because you know it too will pass. You begin to see beauty even in what you once called mistakes, because every wrong turn, every detour, was part of the design. It was how the universe led you back to itself. And you realize that even the darkness was essential, because without it, you would never notice the light. So you stop chasing happiness like a prize. You start to notice that joy was here all along, quietly waiting beneath your seriousness. It reveals itself when you stop demanding explanations, when you stop trying to hold it. You see, joy is not something you get from life. Joy is what remains when you stop resisting life. It's the feeling of being at home in the world, of realizing that you belong not as a guest, not as a stranger, but as the very essence of it all. And this joy is subtle. It doesn't shout or sparkle. It hums. It hums beneath the sound of rain, in the rhythm of your breathing, in the stillness after laughter fades. It's not an achievement, it's recognition. When you awaken, this subtle joy begins to infuse everything you do. You eat, and the food tastes richer. You walk, and the ground feels softer. You speak, and even your silences begin to sing. The world hasn't changed, you have. You've stopped trying to possess what can only be experienced. You've stopped trying to win what was never a contest. And the beautiful thing is, this quiet joy doesn't exclude sorrow. It dances with it. You can cry without despair. You can grieve without bitterness, because you know that loss too is part of the melody. You can even laugh at your own tears, because you feel the tenderness behind them. This is what I mean by the subtle joy of the game. It's the serenity that comes when you stop asking life to be something other than what it is. It's the relief of realizing that the whole performance, the joy, the pain, the confusion, the discovery is exactly as it should be. When you see this, gratitude becomes as natural as breathing. You no longer thank life for giving you what you wanted. You thank it simply for being. You thank it for the play, for the dance, for the mystery, because the truth is, you never really wanted control. You wanted wonder. And now that you see through the illusion of control, wonder returns like a long-lost friend who was waiting in the same room all along. Now, if you followed me this far, you may have begun to sense something extraordinary. Behind all this, play behind the game, the laughter, the joy, there is a stillness. It's like the silence that holds every note of music, or the blank canvas that allows every color to exist. That stillness is what you truly are. The Buddhists call it shunyata, the void, emptiness. But don't be frightened by that word. Emptiness does not mean nothingness. It means spaciousness, possibility, the open sky that allows every cloud to drift freely. Without emptiness, there could be no form. Without silence, there could be no song. Without the space between words, there could be no meaning at all. And so, this dance between form and emptiness, between the visible and the invisible, is the heartbeat of existence. Everything that you see, touch, or think is form. Everything that allows it to be seen, touched, or thought is emptiness. They are not two, they are the front and back of the same coin. You might say the universe is God playing hide and seek with itself. Form hiding, emptiness seeking, emptiness hiding, form revealing. Each breath you take is that game. When you inhale, you take form in. When you exhale, you return it to the void. Now, the tragedy of human life, or perhaps its comedy, is that we fall in love with form and forget the emptiness that makes it possible. We cling to people, possessions, beliefs, as though they could last forever. And when they vanish, as they must, we cry out, "I've lost something real." But what you've lost was never meant to stay. It was a wave returning to the sea, a note fading back into silence. And once you understand this, you begin to see that nothing is ever truly lost. It only changes shape. When you awaken, you don't try to hold the wave still. You learn to surf it. You don't curse the silence when the music ends. You listen to how the silence completes the song. You see that form and emptiness are not in conflict, but in conversation. Look around you. Every flower is a perfect example of this dance. It blooms, radiant and brief, and in its fading, feeds the soil for new life. Death, therefore, is not the opposite of life. It's the partner of birth in the same eternal rhythm. And this is true of you too. The self you think you are, your story, your memories, your personality is a kind of form, a beautiful pattern made of language and sensation. But beneath that pattern lies the formless awareness that has been watching all along. The awareness that has no age, no boundary, no center, no edge. To live as that awareness is to live freely in form while knowing you are not confined by it. To walk as a person, but rest as the universe. To speak as a voice, but listen as silence. To act, yet never lose the stillness from which action arises. Once you taste this, fear begins to lose its grip. For how can emptiness be harmed? How can the sky be burned or broken? The forms may vanish, the body, the story, the name, but the space that holds them remains untouched. This is what the sages meant when they said, form is emptiness and emptiness is form. The two are not enemies. They are lovers in an eternal embrace. They chase each other endlessly, the formless becoming the formed dissolving back into the formless, and in that chase is the beauty of existence. When you see this, you no longer cling to permanence nor fear change. You let life appear and disappear like waves on the shore. You trust the rhythm because you know the dancer and the dance are one and the same. And then every moment, every breath, every glance, every heartbeat becomes a miracle. Because you realize it is the infinite playing as the finite, the vast pretending to be small, the eternal dressing up as time. So, you see, to know the emptiness is not to escape the world, but to see it rightly, to see that behind every flicker of form there shines the light of the formless. And when you live this way, you move through the world like a wave that knows it is water dancing, shimmering, free. So then, my friends, having seen the game, having tasted the joy, having understood the dance between form and emptiness, what remains? Nothing and everything. Because once you realize that you are both the actor and the play, both the mask and the face behind it, there's nothing left to prove. Life becomes simple again. You don't have to make it meaningful, it is meaningful. In the same effortless way, a flower is beautiful, or a bird sings. You see, freedom is not running off the stage. It's dancing upon it, knowing it's theater. It's saying your lines with love. Even as you know they're scripted, it's weeping in the tragic scene and laughing again in the next act, never forgetting that all the while, the actor remains untouched. And so, the awakened man lives like a great actor who knows he's in a play, but gives his performance everything he's got. He loves fully, knowing love will fade. He works sincerely, knowing results will change. He dies, even with a smile, because he knows it was never about winning, but about playing. Now, this doesn't make him careless. On the contrary, he becomes more tender. For when you see that everything is fleeting, you stop taking things for granted. You savor the coffee, you listen to the rain, you look people in the eyes as if you might never see them again because you might not. And in that seeing, love flowers naturally. This is what I mean when I say, live as the free actor. Don't mistake freedom for indifference. Freedom is total involvement with no attachment to outcome. It's to dive into each moment as if it were eternity, because, in truth, it is. You see, eternity is not an endless stretch of time. Eternity is the timeless now, the space in which the play unfolds. It's here, in this breath, in this sound, in this thought, passing through your awareness. And when you live from that center, the world becomes luminous. Even the smallest things, a child's laugh, a leaf trembling in sunlight, reveal themselves as sacred. You begin to feel that there was never a separation between the divine and the mundane. The sacred was hiding in plain sight, in dishes, in footsteps, in the beating of your heart. The free actor moves through life like water flowing downhill. He bends, he adapts, he yields, but he never loses himself. He plays his roles, friend, lover, teacher, fool, but knows that none of them define him. When the scene changes, he bows, steps aside, and enters the next one, without regret and without pride. And the beautiful irony is this: the freer you are, the more fully you can love, because true love is not possession, it's participation. It's joining in the great unfolding of life without trying to control it. It's being so completely present that even loss cannot diminish the joy of having loved. So, live this way. Laugh deeply, knowing that laughter echoes into eternity. Cry honestly, because tears are the rain of renewal. Work as play, love as worship, rest as surrender. Let the world happen through you, and you will find that the doer and the deed were never separate. And one day, maybe at the end of this life, maybe in a quiet moment this afternoon, you'll feel it. That stillness underneath everything, the space between heartbeats, the awareness that was here before you were born and will remain after you die. Then you'll know, not as a theory, but as a direct recognition that you were never just the player. You were the stage, the lights, the music, and the audience too. So, the curtain falls. The story ends. The applause fades into silence. And in that silence, there is no loss, because the whole theater, every actor, every scene, every note, was made of the same thing: consciousness playing with itself. You take a bow, not to the world, but to yourself. And the universe smiles because the game has been played beautifully. After all, the point was never to win. The point was to play.